and welcome to Own It. Self-awareness leads to self-development to self-mastery. It's your life, own it. My name is Marisa Bludon. I am so excited to be here with you. It's the top of the week. And we can start this week off strong and finish it strong. Taking center stage and owning it with me is Teresa Palmer,
Hi.
Pastor Dwayne Irvin, Dr. Jeffrey E. Berger, Nathaniel X. Ross, and Jacqueline Lulu Brown. Hey, did I get everybody? Got to make sure we're all in here. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Fabulous.
Oh my God.
I thought I saw Sabine.
Oh, wait a minute. Where is she? No, she's not in here. She was here, but I don't know how she got off, but that's all right. If she comes back in, we'll just bring her on in. So listen, how is everybody's weekend? How's everybody doing?
Wonderful.
Good.
Doing great.
Absolutely blessed.
Yes.
So listen, we're at the end of March. We've been talking about leadership of self, telling our stories to inspire others and to influence others. And so I just want to touch base and say, how are you guys doing? So we're talking about this in the perspective of the idea of it and how effective it is. But how are we personally applying the things that we've talked about this month? How are we personally applying it? And listen, we got a full house, so let's just pay attention to our time and be considerate. But we're going to talk. We're going to start, of course. Teresa, you're up first. How do we apply this? So my biggest thing is I can't tell someone else to do something if I'm not doing it myself. And oftentimes when I speak, it's echoing back to me as accountability. Marisa, are you doing this? And how well are you doing it? So Teresa, talk about how the things that we spoke about this month and we've shared with our audience, how do you apply them to yourself and the results that you get?
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us, those live and listening to the replay. I think it all comes back to ourself. It all starts with us. And by self, I mean our self, our inner knowing, who we are, and that we have to do the inner work. I think too often we try to get things and we want that instant gratification. Right? I know there's a lot said about manifestation, where there's a lot of misconception about it, where you're supposed to think something and then it materializes. Well, that's not how it works in any way, shape, or form. You have to do the inner work. You have to know who you are. You have to know what triggers you. And that's one of the things that sometimes is hard to work on, because you may be someplace, or you may be speaking someplace and something comes up that triggers you. Well, at that point, you have to recognize that that's a trigger and you have to deal with it. You can't let that take over. It's kind of the same thing with personal opinions. Somebody may be talking about something on a podcast, or you may be a guest on something, and you have a very different outlook, perhaps, or other people have a different outlook. Well, it's not about your opinion, it's about what you're sharing for other people. And again, that's knowing yourself, knowing who you are, what triggers you, because we all have triggers. We all have triggers. We just really can't act on them, especially in a public place. And I think sometimes that gets forgotten. I've listened to podcasts where people rant and rave, and they don't realize that you don't know, number one, who's listening, who may be in that audience that perhaps could help you with something, but now they're listening to your rant and rave and you've turned them off. So you've lost either a potential client, potential mentor, potential help. You've lost something. At the very least, we don't realize it, but then we look foolish. We don't come off as being professional people. So I would say we always have to practice what we preach. It starts within us, and we have to know who we are, what triggers us, and what we're about, and then take that into the outside world, being mindful that it's not again about us, it's about the people that we're here to help. Thank you.
No, awesome, awesome, really good. We talk about that, right? Those triggers, and that's what It's Your Life, Own It is all about. It's about, just like I said at the top of the show, it's about self-awareness. You got to know, so that when those triggers, and I call them traps and snares, right? When they show up, you have what? Done the self-development enough so that you operate in self-mastery. And mastery means not perfection. Mastery means that when that trigger happens, you're already aware of it. So you already aware doesn't mean that you are going to not be caught off guard. Does not mean that. That's where the mastery comes in, right? That it happens, you weren't expecting it, but you know how to come back, right? You had to bounce back. And I talk about a speech that I was delivering during the Toastmasters event where it was so personal to me. It was my first conference that I was doing, and it was so important to me, to the point where I almost felt like when I was speaking about it, that I didn't feel authentic. And a lot of that came from me having, trying to use cue cards to make sure I remember everything instead of operating in my natural flow. And as a result, I crashed right in front of them. And the audience, my fellow Toastmasters, they were shocked because they were used to me showing up at a certain level and my delivery style being on a certain level. And they were shocked at my performance. And I wasn't shocked. I wasn't surprised at all because it meant so much to me. And I just wanted, and in the midst, I was within conflict with myself. I was trying to do what other people said you had to do, have the cards and study this thing out and practice. Well, I'm not one of those people that speak that way. I speak off the cuff with excellence. When you get me in too much of a preparatory place, I start losing it because I feel like I'm not being authentic. I'm not being true. I'm being practiced. And so we do have to know how to navigate through the triggers. And that comes from, listen, again, it goes back to know thyself. Like you said, Teresa, you have to know yourself well enough that when something comes in to try to get you off kilter, to question you or cause you to question yourself, that whole self-development, that thing that you do by yourself as you do those personal analysis, that SWOT, that assessment of who you are and what you're about. Remember, we talk about core values. The core values are your guiding principles. That's why you got to know what your core values are, because they set your boundaries. They teach you all of these things. And so that's the self-development part that prepares you and to operate in self-mastery, that when these triggers come, you do know how to navigate. That's what our plea here is for our audience, is that if this is a space where you need that cultivating and that support and that development, this is why we have these conversations, to teach you some methodology, some different perspectives. That's why we have so many people in the room here, is so that we don't have one perspective, that you have a plethora of options and people to connect with, personalities, because you can't please everybody. Everybody is not for everybody. One person may hear me and say, oh my God, I really love her. Or they may say, oh my God, I cannot hear her voice again, right? So it's just the reality. In the US, you guys have like 300 and something million people. So it's all good. If somebody don't like you, then there's somebody else. There's somebody else. There's someone else to connect with. Because what happens when we try to govern from a place of what is everybody going to be okay with, we dull down and we lessen our natural impact. and the real people that we are, the real clients or the real folks that we're trying to connect with, we won't get connected with those people because we'll be drawing in the people that we're showing up. And so, Teresa, you make such a great point. I'm going to navigate over to Pastor Durain. Pastor Durain, I know you're chiming. How do we use these things ourselves? The very thing that we talk to other people about in regards to storytelling, influencing, and making impact. How do we use those for ourselves?
Good morning, everyone. It is certainly a privilege to be here. I agree with Teresa in some aspects. You have to know yourself. Not only do you have to know yourself, you have to be confident in who you are. It's okay if they don't like you. Like you said, it's okay if they don't want to hear your voice again. I remember I had surgery and on my throat, and I literally sounded like Mickey Mouse. And of course, my teachers didn't tell me then, but I had another surgery that corrected it. And they said, I could not stand to hear your voice. And I was like, oh my. And they were like, every time you would start talking, I would cringe. It was sort of like the chalk, putting your fingernails on the chalk. Well, I didn't know that's how I sounded. And unfortunately, I had no control over it. But I knew I sounded like a cartoon character. But I had to own that thing. That's all I had to deal with. And I still had to be the lead. And I had to be comfortable and confident that it wasn't how I sounded. It was the message that I was trying to get across. And that's where we have to, when we are self-aware and we're doing that self-development, we are confident in who we are. I stand on the word of God. So I know I am confident in every word that he says in his word. I own it. And I declare that is who I am. And like we say, I own it and I walk it out.
Yes.
But I try to encourage other people to do the same thing. I have a couple of people that I'm mentoring and they'll say something negative. I say, oh no, we speak positivity. We're not letting those negative words come out. We are not affirming what other people say, because it's not the names that people call you. It's what you choose to respond to. If you respond to that negatively, then you own it. It becomes a part of you. It's like that seed you put in the ground. And then somebody else comes and calls you something negative and they water, and next thing you know, you got a harvest of negativity. That devil is a liar.
Yes.
And I choose to have a harvest of positivity. So when the snares and traps come, I remind myself who I am. I know I have triggers, but I remind myself I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I look at it for what it is. I say, and I talk to myself. I don't know if some of you, but talk to yourself. I talk to myself, and I call myself Diva. Yes, I do. I go, look, Diva, you already know that's a trap. How many times you going to jump in there? So I tell myself, okay, when the enemy throw a trap, I'm going back to my baseball skills. And he expected me to throw a fast pitch. I'm going to throw a curveball, or I'm going to throw a slow ball, because he's not expecting that. So I'm not going to respond in the way that he wants me to. And I literally talk myself through it. But when you have that self-development and self-awareness, and you know who you are and you know whose you are, then you can rely on whatever your faith base is. That's what you stand on. If you say you believe it, then stand on it and walk in it. Own it. Thank you, ma'am.
Awesome. And that's it. It doesn't matter what your belief systems, and just like you, I'm crazy for the Lord. But I always encourage people to be true. Own what it is that you believe in. That's why those core values, I'm going to keep driving at home. Those core values, that SWOT analysis, that those personal assessments of yourself. Don't overdo it. Be a little kind to yourself. We know personally, when we sit by ourselves, we know the things that we're doing, and we know the things that we are not doing. And sometimes we know when we're being too tough on ourselves. Love yourself. I want to talk about the importance of when you speak from a place of confidence, but also from a place of confidence and happiness and fulfillment. When you're confident and you're happy, you don't have that. It lessens that venom or that bitterness that shows up when you're confident and you're not happy. Sometimes you're bitey when you're showing up. And I think that, I could use different terminology, but I think we all get it, is that you got to be happy. You got to be confident and happy. There's a combination of that just becomes the perfect formula for showing up and being gracious, kind, and compassionate towards others that may not agree with you. I believe that that's important too. And, just like you said, I talk to myself. I have no qualms with doing that. And I even answer myself because I need answers. So I even answer myself. And I have a ball doing it. So when I show up, I'm confident, but I also am happy. And when we're doing that, we come from a place of love. We're not coming from a place of attacking. We're not coming from a place of we got it all together, because I don't have it all together. Right in front of that Toastmasters, my fellow Toastmasters, I had to pull myself together. I had leaned in to one of my very good friends and I said, girl, I just want to sit down. I just want to disappear. And I was saying that to her in front of everyone. But there's something about being authentic. There's something about being true to self. There's something about being vulnerable and not being embarrassed about failure, because failure it helps us to grow. And it also too helps us to not feel ashamed when something else happens, because life is going to keep on happening. And we've got to get to a place where uncomfortable things are not so drastic or not so traumatic, where we can't bounce back, because we need bounce back. So right in front of them, I bounced back. I bounced back and I shifted from looking at cards and saying, look, this is my baby. Take center stage is my heartbeat. And I just need to tell you that when you come to this event, it's going to be life-changing, because we're talking about self-awareness. Because without self-awareness and self-development and self-mastery, you're not going to excel in your life. You're not going to excel in your career. You're not going to excel in your business. So this is the very thing that most people run from. Self is you run all day because you don't want to deal with what you know your reality is. But I'm going to tell you that if you would take center stage in your life, your career, and your business and own it, you will start flourishing. Who's in your boardroom? Stop letting yourself and stop letting others tell you that you're not good enough. And so I want to go on over to Thailand. All right, Nathaniel, how do you use this in your own life? Come on, talk to us. And what time is it there?
It is 9:17 p.m.
Okay, so that's not too shabby. Talk to us, Nathaniel. What's going on? How do you use this in your life? We tell other people what they should be doing, and we suggest it. And then I want to hear, what are we doing? Are we using this? Are we using it?
Well, I do, and I'll start by saying I share stories, whether they're my own stories or other people's stories that I have seen and experienced. Because when I share those stories, it makes me reflect. Like you said, Marissa, makes me reflect and go, am I doing these things? Mm-hmm. Right? I can't teach it and not question whether or not I'm living up to doing those things myself. So hearing the stories it's an accountability check for me. But from what Teresa and Pastor said, and I think I'll take this little lesson and put it into both a secular and spiritual perspective. People talk about manifestation, but like in a lot of things, we bastardize and we shorten the message so that we don't get people aren't getting the full lesson, only taking a piece of it because it's easy to quote and it's easy to say. So everyone knows about the law of manifestation. And from a spiritual perspective, Dr. Rain can wheel me in if I'm off base here, but we are made in God's own image.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people get caught up on, well, what does God look like? And I think in terms of when we're talking about image, he gives the power to speak things into existence. And that power to speak things into existence is both negative and positive, because those are the two forces of the universe. And people are constantly speaking things into existence. And that law of manifestation is real clear. It's 4 steps to it. You think about something, you write about something, you speak about something, but you have to put that 4th step in places. You got to put the action behind it in order to put it into existence. And, you know, that's where I think we get a little lost with some of the people in the manifestation part of it, is what the action behind it. Because if I want to change, I can think about it, I can speak about it, I can write about it. But if I don't put the action behind it, it's never going to happen. And putting that action is what brings it about for me.
That is awesome. I love it, because you're so right. Because what happens with people is they think, puff, and it magically is going to appear. And even when I do a lot of speaking, I have a lot of people say to me, Marisa, how do you do this? And I've often said, you cannot rub me like a Buddha and think this is going to transfer. You've got to do the work. And you've heard me say over and over, I love people. I love everyone that God has assigned to me. And I am praying for you all. Trust me, I am, with my whole heart and with diligence am I praying for you. But at the end of the day, you've got to do the work. And you'll hear me say, I don't like coaching. And it's not because I don't like coaching. I am results driven. I'm a list person, and I like to check stuff off. I get my resiliency, I get my energy, I get my motivation, by things getting accomplished. And so most people don't want to do the hard work. And most of the hard work starts with you. I always say the one variable that never changes, that you can never remove from your life, is you. You've got to be willing to do the work. You can think it, write it, speak it, but courage, tenacity, and audacity takes action. It takes you doing it. And we are at a very critical point. If you're listening to this, it's very, very important, because you are at a crossroads. Do I continue this? Just like he says in the Matrix, you want to take the red pill, you want to take the blue pill. Which one? Which one? Which one? Because greatness is awaiting you to arrive. And not to be afraid of it. Stop being afraid of it. Because on the other side, see, I love Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because self-actualization is liberation. It's being unapologetic. It's being unleashed to conforming. Because at the level by which you enter into self-actualization or stay in conformity is you pleasing other people and keeping it safe. Self-actualization is not being perfected. It's being free from everything else that everybody else says, and believing in who you truly were meant to be, and start living that fulfilling life. And I've studied Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So if you haven't, study and read in between the lines. He was not talking about all of this maximizing your talents, your gifts, your proficiency. It was owning who you are. And so I'm going to finish out with you, Lulu, but we're going to let Jeffrey, we're going to let Dr. Berger speak, and then Lulu, you close us out. This has been amazing. I love this.
Thanks, Marisa. Yeah, this has been a great panel discussion today, and great seeds have been planted. And again, with Teresa, really hit it off about self-awareness. And once you know yourself, then that love of self really starts to foster a lot of open doors for yourself. And this is something that I learned later in life. And as I always say, better late than never. And you talk about self-development, you talk about self-mastery, and this is where we need to own it. We need to step into our own space and take control about our own purpose-driven meaning. What are we here for? What is our outcome? And what are we going to leave the world once we ourselves depart? And it's all really for the betterment of humanity is what I am driven by. What changes can I make to help people grow from where they are? And you talked about being, comfortable in your uncomfortable zone. It's really stepping beyond that comfort zone where growth really happens and it really occurs. And if you can embrace that, those reactions of uncertainty and learn from that. And one of the things that I've learned over the last several years, being in front of, these amazing leaders here, along with others, because I love to pick different stories and see how can I intertwine them into my own stories, because they help me move from a trigger component, from a react to an evaluate. And I used to be a reactor, which was not healthy. And the evaluate is, okay, so how can I take this information? It's being triggered by me or triggered to me. How can I take this and turn it around to something of value? What am I going to learn from it? What is it going to do for me? How can I move forward with it? But more so, can I help somebody else with that down the road? So, and this is all part of my own, journey with regards to my core values of love, integrity, passion, responsibility, and perseverance. So thank you.
This is awesome. You talked about getting a late start. Delay is not denial. It is not denial, no matter where you are. And I know Pastor Durain talks about that a lot, about things happening for us. And so sometimes delay is just preparation. It's about alignment. It's about everything that needs to be done in the background of you showing up for that moment. And so, and I believe Pastor Durain, you talked about that too. It's like, evaluate from the positive perspective. What positive can I take out of a negative experience, right? How can I build characters? Because this is all about building character. It's about building integrity. It's about building a tough skin, because, everything is not going to work in our favor, but do we give up? No. Anything worth having is worth fighting for, right? It's worth showing up for. I love how you said evaluate. I say assess, address, and move forward. Evaluate is so good that you evaluate. That's the analytical. You're counting the cost. You're looking at the variables to see how is this whole thing working out. It's operating at another level, in another frequency, in another vibration, right? You're going up higher. And when you go up higher, you're increasing your capacity for understanding and relativity, right? You're relating in a different way. So you're showing up in a different way. We have got to come to a heightened level of consciousness, not just existing. Like you said, not being reactive, but being proactive and intentional, right? Strategically intentional. What is it that I really want out of this? That's even with the dynamics of our relationships. You don't just stop cutting people off and evaluate and say, wait a minute, maybe I need to put this on pause so things can relax a little bit. But we talk about, Lulu and I, needs analysis, skills analysis, where we're assessing, like, what is the value of this relationship? Not today, but perhaps tomorrow or well into the future. Do I cut this off and then cut my blessing off long term? Or do I sit and pause? Like when we cook, we don't cook. Some things we cook straight up, right? Some things have to go through a process in order for us to get the maximized flavoring, right? So we marinate our meats. Sometimes we marinate our vegetables, right? We let them sit in a sauce for a while. So sometimes that's how we have to do with ideas. That's
Mhm.
sometimes we have to do with people, situations. We have to start thinking in a bigger way if we want bigger outcomes. So Lulu, we're at the top of the half hour. I don't want to keep the people any too much longer, but will you close us out? And I'm letting her close us out so just to yield back time to the people. That's all. And so love you. Lulu, close us out with your thoughts.
Thank you so much. Everyone has really provoked thought and said some profound things that our listeners can actually walk away with. And so I would add that it starts by looking in the mirror first. And I know, we've all kind of touched on this, but if you think about it, sometimes we're looking in the mirror to see how we look physically. And it takes looking in the mirror to say, well, am I really being true? Because we're talking about how do you apply what you give to others to yourself. So you have to ask yourself, am I really applying it? And can I see it? Can I see it when I look at myself, when I come out of myself and look at myself from afar? Do I really see that I'm doing that? And it's kind of like I'm going to tap on to preparing for the meal. So when you're preparing the meal and you sit down, are you eating the meal that you've prepared, or are you only sampling it because you want to sample what's convenient for you versus eating the whole meal that you've prepared for everybody else? And know that this is not a performance. We've all talked about the reality of when you're the deer in the headlights. And if you haven't been, you will be at some point in time. But this is about not being a performer and everything always working perfectly, but it's about being vulnerable and letting people know that you are human. They have to see that, you know what? They're human too. They experience the things that I experience. And then when you are operating in joy, last but not least, we know we need discipline. We know we need strategy. These are all of the things that we teach others. We have to apply that to ourselves. But joy has to be there, because if there is no joy, people are going to sense that. They're going to see that. They're going to sit back and say, well, gee, why is he or she here? But when we are grounded, and I'm talking about soul fueled in joy, people are going to get far more than we can even imagine. We'll think that, well, okay, I hope they got this, I hope they got that. They're going to get far more, because when we're doing something with joy, we are now in the sacred space. We are now delivering from the core and the essence of who we are. And there's no greater power than that. When you can deliver from the core and the essence of who you are and take it all and put it back on yourself and continue to bathe in it. I didn't say rinse in it, bathe in it. When you can continue to bathe and bask in what you are giving to others, you are going to constantly grow. And Marisa, when you talked about going higher, you're going to be in those elevated dimensions. You're not going to be in that low dimensional thinking and that low dimensional mindset, but you're going to be in that higher dimension. And guess what? When you're there, you can't help but bring other people up with you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
That's so good. So good. I'm going to say this. You can say whatever you want about Michael Jackson. But let me tell you something. He broke so many records and did so much and had so much, unleashed potential that he fully operated in it. He said in his song, when talking about change, he says, I'm starting with the man in the
In
mirror.
the mirror. Yes. Yes.
I'm asking him to change
Change
his ways.
ways.
And so I will leave with that, but I'm going to also talk about joy. When you are in a place of joy, you're operating from a place of love.
Mm.
You're operating from a place of love and inviting others in to feel that love. And when we are serving people, we have to serve from a place of love, because that is what's causing purified change. And that is what keeps the heart of the leader pure, is that they're operating from a place of love. And so I just want to say that I love you all. I do. I think about you all day. And I get so excited when we're getting ready to come on and all of that other good stuff. And I just want to say thank you so very much. You guys are a phenomenal team. For those of you who are going to be here in the DR in a couple of weeks, we're going to party hardy. But for those of you who are not with us, you will be with us in spirit. And just prepare for 2026. Make sure you're here. Make it make sense. Be here with us in 2026, or we'll have some things going on between now and then. You can come on in and check in and be here. But I just want to say I love you guys. You guys are dedicated. You're committed, both on screen and in paper. Your articles inspiring others. Teresa going the extent of creating videos within the magazine so that you're not just reading her words. Those who don't see her live, you're actually getting to hear her voice and getting to connect with her. So I just want to say to you all, Nathaniel, you committed. You're coming to us and totally it's night, it's morning, and you're here. And so thank you so very much. And you and I need to connect because we got to get some things moving forward with you. And so love you guys. And thank you so very much. You guys take care. Be blessed throughout the day.
Marisa, can I jump in for a quick minute?
Yes.
Nathaniel, we are praying for Thailand and all that you guys have gone through with that earthquake. Please know that you are in our thoughts and prayers. It's good to see you and to know that you and your family are okay, sir. Be encouraged.
Yes. I didn't even know y'all had an earthquake in Thailand.
7.7. Yes, ma'am.
Ooh.
Serious damage.
Woo.
Well, actually, I'll tell you guys backstage.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. We are out, guys. Bless you.